Good evening and welcome to another episode of the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. Thought we might have a special guest for you guys tonight, somebody we all haven't seen in a long time. Harry, why don't you start us off? Tell us what happened, man.
Yeah, so we were going to have Todd because he's finally off tonight, but unfortunately his computer, still has a bunch of dust on it. So he said it just kept spinning. I'm like, well, that's your fault. Should have been on here before. You don't show up. That's the penalty, I guess. For his computer. But poor guy. It would have been awesome to hear his views on SAFC. Towards the later half of the show, and maybe he'll get it working, but it's not looking good, he said. And I think you mentioned a post on social media. He was looking at some type of computer, but I guess he did not pull a trigger.
Didn't pull the trigger on the computer or the blender, is my understanding. But hopefully we get Todd back on here soon and everything. But we do have Rafa with us again this evening. How are you doing tonight, Rafa?
Good.
Little relaxation from the travels.
Austin last week. Well, I was at the Austin Bowl game. Right up with Harry there. I guess we'll talk a little bit about that game.
Yeah, Bradford Jameson has to be a topic between you two, and we'll
I don't know if we had enough evidence. Me and Rafa were talking in this last game. We didn't really have enough Jameson evidence, enough film on tape to make a ruling yet. But I think we're gonna both try and get some press passes for this next one, so we can be up there in the media perch, and me and him are gonna break it down from that angle, so we can see a little bit more of what's happening off the ball. And like you said, we'll get into that SAFC talk here in a little bit. But Harry, I think you were the first one, man, so far kind of up to the plate for the WPSL match when you saw Lone Star take on Alamo City on Friday evening. I understand you and Danielle were there. Why don't we start off with a little bit of the women's action, because I know we kind of focused some on the men's on the last episode. So tell us a little bit about that Lone Star versus Alamo City WPSL game.
Yeah, so you and I went to the Alamo City one on Friday, and then you and I both went to the Athenians on Saturday. I thought both of them, just talking about the environment and talking about crowds, both of them had a really good setup. As far as crowd-wise, I was impressed by both. Both. I know the Crocketeers were out, at the Athenians match, and it was an awesome job by Thomas and Warren and the spouses of both of them. Because they man the food line all game line, and while Thomas and Warren drink some beers and talk some stuff. So shout out to them guys. So, but as far as the kickoff, for the action this week here. The Athenians they lost 5-0 in the opening against the defending champion Houston Aces, and to be honest with you, they showed why they're the defending champions. And I'd be interesting to see how they face off. They played the last game of the year at the end of the month, or last game of the year at the end of the month on the 29th for that here. So if they're there, but as far as for Alamo City. They played a tough Lone Star team. It was 1-0. They got a goal early off of a header, I want to say within the first 10 minutes. And, they held strong through the rest. And to be honest with you, they had the better scoring chances. Lone Star had some better chances in the second half for that here. But to me, the environment where they had, you're able to get beers and margaritas, and, they had a couple of food trucks out there. And what I enjoyed at both games here, there was a spot for the kids to go play soccer behind. So if they wanted to watch for a little bit, they could, but afterwards they had the fields behind where they could go and kick the ball. And to me, it wasn't just Anna and AJ, but it was 3, 4, 5 of them out there doing it. Unfortunately, Alamo City on Sunday had a rough match against AHFC Royals where they ended up losing 9-0. I did reach out to Alamo. They mentioned, that they own the results, but they, with the short turnaround, they had some nicks and some players that didn't show up, and unfortunately, they had 3 own goals, which kind of didn't help the situation. For Alamo City, they're going to start off. Their next match is on Wednesday at San Antonio Blossoms, which I think I'm going to try to see if I can get out to there. Be at the Blossoms home opener for there. And then Saturday they play at TTI Blue Bonnets for that there. For the Blossoms, they also started out on the road at TTI Blue Bonnets and lost 1-0 for that here. Don't have a lot of results on that one here. When I did look at the schedule, it looks like it was the winner for TTI Blue Bonnets, I think around the 85th minute for that. For Alamo City, the UPSL side here, them and Samba, the Lady Sambas, played to a 0-0 tie at 4 o'clock on the first there at Alamo Sports Complex there. So not a whole lot to report on that. And then, of course, they'll play next on the 15th against San Antonio Sporty. Speaking of San Antonio Sporty, they did not play this week, so they were off. They next play against on the road against FC Coyotes. And for Samba, they had the Alamo City, and then they play also on the 22nd, so they're off for a little bit. On the men's side, kind of a big upset. I think most of us thought here with the Samba men upsetting FC Waco 3-2 for that here. So that's a good win for John and his boys here. And they play again on Saturday against Round Rock and Sunday against FC Thunder. So, and both of those are at Wheatley Heights. So the Saturday game's at 7 and the Sunday game's at 5 for that. So a big week for Samba as we talk standings here in a minute here. For the runners, they got a impressive 4-0 win over Round Rock on the first there, and they play FC Thunder on Saturday for that here. I did check with Mason just to touch base with him. He mentioned that he's really proud of the guys, and he's actually been out of town, so his assistants that were kind of running things. So he was really happy that even though he wasn't there, that he had the leadership to kind of step in and help run the team for that there. The Thunder unfortunately had another rough weekend. They lost 4-1 to Backcountry, on the road there. They've got kind of a big weekend coming up where they play the Runners on the 8th and Samba on the 9th. So, and both are away. So, Runners Saturday at 7 and turn around at 5 o'clock on Sunday on the 9th there. So it'll be interesting as they're off to a little bit of a struggling start. And then the Corinthians, they had a 3-0 win over Cedar Stars for that here, and their next game is going to be against Houston F.C. At Warrior Stadium Saturday at a noon kickoff for that here. So if you don't have time to anything to do Saturday and Saturday morning, or I guess mid morning, it'll be an interesting kickoff time at noon. Looking at the standings for it here, with the Hart Conference, San Antonio Runners and Waco are tied at 25 points. Goal difference has the Runners in first is +2, so that one's going to be a battle. And then, I did reach out, and the reason why that's even a bigger battle is 9 teams make the playoffs, so top 3 in each division. So whoever has the best record will get that bye that first round. So right now it's shaping up to either be the Runners or FC Waco. So if you can get a bye that first week to extend to the second week of the playoffs, that's all the more important. Samba is 1 point. Coyotes FC is technically still in third, but they played 12 matches at 21 points. Samba and Backcountry both have 8, and they're at 16 and 15. So I think those are the true battle for that third spot here, where they've got 4 games in hand and only need 5 points. So you're gonna figure that they're gonna pick up some points along the way. So that one will be an interesting battle to work out. And then in the South, right now the Corinthians are actually in pretty good shape here. They're in third place already. They played 8 games at 18 points. Athletico Katie's behind them at 17, but they played 2 more matches. So if the Corinthians can still hold on to current form, they should be in the top 3 pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
Question is whether they can make up the difference to try to get that number one slot. I guess the other outside candidate for the number 1 slot would have to be Houston FC because they played 9 games and have 22 points on there as well. So they might be another contender for that bye spot. Because they do have they have a game in hand, and their goal difference is a plus 21. So I'm interested to see how that would kind of work out because they're in different conferences. How if they're equal on points, how you're gonna separate who gets the number 1 seed if it is tied. But for the men, as far as the ladies, because they just recently started. For the Houston Aces, I think I tweeted out. I think they've already got it clinched. They've already played 3 games. They're 3-0. They haven't been scored on, and they're a plus 14. So I will have to do some research on the
UPSL and WPSL.
The WS, the UWS, to see what their playoff structure is. But I think you could almost pencil in the Aces on winning that conference at this point. As far as for the standings in the WPSL South, it's very, very early. AHFC is top with 10 points. Alamo City does have 6 points, tied for third, but they've also played a game or two before, and the Blossoms have only played 1 game, so it's still real early for them. And in the women's, Samba's leading with 1 win, 2 draws at 5 points. Alamo City is second with 4 points, and Sporty's only got 1, but they've only played 1 point, so it's real early on that side for that here. But it'll be interesting to see what the Alamo City UPSL team does. And Sporty, I haven't really seen a whole lot of them. I haven't made out to see them at all yet, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how they shape up with it. But any thoughts on the lower leagues? Anything catches your attention?
Yeah, obviously, big win for Samba against FC Waco. That was huge. Really helped them out in the standings. Like you said, with only the top 3 teams making it, it kind of looks like FC Thunder Bernie may be the odd team out this year, just barely missing the playoffs last year with kind of a loss there at the end of the season when they needed a win. But this year, just not really doing as well, with only 2 wins and 6 losses and no draw. So I think that's kind of been a little bit of a surprise this season in the UPSL. As you mentioned, San Antonio Corinthians are really hot right now and doing pretty good there in the South Division. So they should definitely, I think, advance to the playoffs. But I'm kind of curious, with what you saw Alamo City doing out there at their game on Friday night, and just kind of, the crowd and the atmosphere and all the different things that we saw at the Athenians game on Saturday night. They say that competition is good. It kind of helps make things better. Is that kind of a new standard now? Because even when the Athenians were playing in the WPSL 2 seasons ago, nobody was selling beer, nobody was tailgating, and now you have a few different clubs that are all trying to get the food trucks out there and something for the kids. Do you think that part of that is just this competition, in attracting fans to come out to the matches?
Well, I think it's kind of 2 separate things. I know with the Crocketeers, they're going back to their roots of supporting all San Antonio soccer, through there. So I think they got a little specialized too much on San Antonio FC, and under Thomas's leadership, he wants to branch out a little bit more. And to me, it kind of helps build that group to where, where it's not just a SAFC, it's more San Antonio soccer, for the hair. So I know for the Crocketeers, that's kind of a little bit more driving behind supporting both, both the teams. Now, the question kind of comes into me that I've kind of thought on here is it does seem like the Athenians have stepped in to be our SAFC team, where they're the top dog. I think when you look at social media, they're all over the radio. I think they've been on TV. They have a lot more media presence behind them. The marketing, team behind them is good, and to me, they're just like the Scorpions, like the SAFC. They've got a name, they've got a brand out there. I think as far as for Alamo City, where they have the advantages, even though they're a club team, per se, with academy underneath them. Unlike the Blossoms, where I think initially they had a good pop coming out, but then it just disappeared. And I think Classic Elite's behind them.
Yep.
They're more internal, and in speaking with some of the Alamo City fans and parents of one of the girls there, they say that they got a lot of talent, and because she's in that environment, that it's just a different way of taking things. So I'll be interested to kind of see the Blossoms turn out on Wednesday. And I know it's a midweek game, but it was a Friday night game for Alamo City. I liked, I live next to Alamo City, and like I said last episode, they're probably going to be my team that I kind of root for, just because they're the team closest to me. They engage. If I send them a message, they'll typically respond in a pretty timely manner. Blossoms have yet to respond, and not saying that the Athenians don't respond either, because they do. But I think when it comes to, the level, and I know Samba's probably not going to like this, I think they've raised the level even for the UPSL men's teams, to where, if you're going to get out, I think there's 6 women's teams, right? I think out there right now, 3 lower divisions men's teams. You're all fighting for that little, for the San Antonio, soccer fans. And to me, you've got to be able to be out on social media. You got to be able to, be out in the community. And while I'm not as close to know exactly with what Samba has locally in the area there, I do know when it comes to crowd wise, I don't think at least recently they're beating with what we saw at the Athenians last night, or not last night, but on Saturday, or even what Alamo City had. Now, I think Alamo City's got a little bit of an advantage because a lot of them are academy parents that come out and help support. So I think that is an advantage. But the environment that they put out is, it's close to the field, and you've been out to Wheatley. It's it's a high school stadium, so you're not as near to the action as you are at these other 2 places. So, what was your thoughts on the Athenians setup?
Yeah, so I thought the Athenians had a great setup out there. I mean, obviously you saw the whole home side of the bleachers were full. They even had some traveling fans from the Houston Aces on the opposite side when I went over there at halftime, just to kind of try and get a better view, because I mean, you couldn't, if you didn't, we went in probably 30 minutes before kickoff, and they were only 5-6 tier bleachers. It's not like they were grandstands or anything, but I mean, it was already all the way to the 18. There was no seats available in between the 18-yard boxes unless you went to the other side. So we went over there after.
And they were pretty filled. It wasn't a lot of empty spaces. They were filled in. People, I'm not saying you're cramped like a movie, but there wasn't a lot of empty spaces in there.
Right. So, I mean, I thought it was a great atmosphere. My question probably is going to be with how well the Houston Aces played. What are these other teams in the UWS going to look like? Was that kind of a sign of things to come for the San Antonio Athenians? I felt like in that first 15 minutes, they kind of held their own, but you could tell they were a little bit more rusty than what the Aces were, having played 3 games already and being the defending champions.
3
games. So, I wonder, too, with the level of competition that we might see from the UWS, if having the number of women's teams that we do in San Antonio is what's going to cause the Athenians to not be as competitive because of the talent being spread out amongst all these different clubs. Because I felt like if you could take the best 3 players from, Samba, and the best 3 players from the Blossoms and from Alamo City, and you threw that into an 18 or whatever there for a team like Athenians competing in the UWS, they probably would have had a lot better showing. I hate to say it, but I think that the Athenians goalkeeper leaves a lot to be desired. Even on that first goal that they scored on that free kick, I could see her setting up her wall from where I was sitting. And Delaney was the only one next to me, but I said, watch goal near post before the kicker even took it. And I mean,
I saw that too. We were sitting on the other side.
She left it wide open. She didn't have her wall set up correctly. It just wasn't that strong. And I feel like if you're going to compete, you're going to have to try and keep the score a lot closer, and you're really going to need a strong keeper to do that. But we'll see, how the season goes. Like I say, it was still their first game. You could tell they were a little rusty. I mean, you can practice all you want, but getting into game scenarios and game speed, Rafa, I mean, you can probably speak to that a little bit. How different is it, in training and in preparation versus come Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, game speed, you can't mock it from practice to the actual game. So you really, like I said, you have to bring your hustle when you play the real game. As a coach, you try to do as much as you can to kind of simulate it, but it's nothing like the real thing. I was curious about the makeup of the Athenians, because I looked at the roster of the Aces, and they were pretty. It should have had they had a lot of experienced players, like especially like some members on the Colombian national team on there. So I wonder if that.
They're affiliated with the Dash, is my understanding. Speaking there is, them and the Dash have a partnership, which you could kind of see that talent. There was a difference, bit of rustiness, for the Athenians, and we'll see how they grow. But the Aces, were definitely, you could just tell they were at a different level.
Well, and I was kind of surprised by how young they looked. I mean, some of the girls out there, we were talking to Danielle from Las Rojas before the game, and I'm sure they do have some veterans. You could see a few players that looked to be more of like a veteran kind of leadership player, but a few of them, I mean, they looked young, and we didn't get a copy of the roster to know all the ages and everything to be able to speak to it a little bit more accurately as far as like an average age goes or anything, but some of those girls looked pretty young out there. And I mean, they could play even for, what looked to be maybe like 17, 16, 18-year-olds out there. So they were a pretty strong team. Probably one of the most impressive teams I've seen playing in women's here in San Antonio outside of maybe some of the international friendlies and things like that. But as far as league play goes, Houston Aces were on point.
But I'm going to counter you, and it won't benefit them this year. But if we can determine and say the UWS is a tier higher than, let's say, the UPSL and
the
WPSL, I think is a little bit there.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be able to see some of the talent start to rise to where maybe the Athenians, and I hate saying poach, but start to be able to get some of those better players with better offers, depending on, the pay structure and stuff like that, which is, I have zero clue on, but that might be something to where if we can get a little bit of a tiered for the women's game, to where maybe, some of these young talents, with especially to me, the UPSL teams, if you can start to get to that to where they can maybe take that next step. And I guess the WPSL as well, where they can take that next step if the, UWS is really going to be that second tier for, for the women that they're trying to be. That might be something to where right now it may be a disadvantage, but maybe in a year or two it could be a huge advantage to where they have all these teams that are kind of help feeding not only San Antonio, not only local colleges, but other programs to where maybe in the NWSL you'll have some local San Antonio talent that's came through the pipeline.
And that would be great to see. I mean, we've often talked about, what some of these girls' hopes are for what they're playing for, just because unfortunately the leagues here for the women, not as many opportunities and things like that professionally to play as what there are for the men with the USL and all the different, tiers and everything. But I think even more so than pay structure, I think what some of these girls are going to start to notice is just the attention. Like you saw a couple of the players on Good Day SA or Good Morning SA or whatever. I mean, I hate to say it, but I just don't think you're going to get some of those same opportunities playing in the WPSL. Obviously, the UPSL is a brand new league that's starting to try and build, so you can't really put that even in the same tier. The WPSL, with the number of teams that they have and everything, to me would be a closer competitor. But I think also, too, Harry, that a lot of these girls, the way they're choosing their teams is based upon how comfortable they are with the trainings and who they're training with and
coaches,
how those trainings are going on exactly. Because I know through speaking to some of the Blossom players, that's kind of why they decided to stay with the Blossoms instead of going back to the Athenians, is because they like the practices and the training sessions and things like that a little bit more. So I wonder if the other attractive factor, maybe now that you saw Rafa Castillo out there as head coach, how many of these girls would love to train and learn under somebody like Rafa Castillo versus some of these other clubs where, it's probably some of the same academy coaches and things like that are running the UPSL and WPSL teams.
But I think the other key, and this is no slight to the Athenians, you've got to see some stability. They played it. They had a great first year, took the second year off. seem like they're starting well. That technically year 3, I guess, if you could say, of women's soccer here in San Antonio, where as much as I give Blossoms grief, they made it to year 2 without no breaks.
Yeah, well, and even this season,
for that here.
The split off, like you saw from the Corinthians, the switch to going and playing in UWS. I mean, there's been some changes even this season before it kicked off, so that's a great point. Obviously a little bit of stability is going to be important too when it comes to the training and everything else. So it's a good point.
So I think that's going to be the key. If the Athenians are going to be that true top team, for San Antonio ladies, soccer or football, they've got to develop that stability. Because to me, the facility that they're at, it's a long ways from where we live, but it seems like an awesome site. And like I said here, it seemed like Cibolo was out and supporting it. To me, I enjoyed that. They allowed the Crocketeers to do what they did without any issues. Because I think other facilities may not have allowed that activity. So.
Well, you had some of the city leaders from Cibolo and stuff like that out there too. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that I'm kind of curious about is how long the San Antonio Athenians keep the San Antonio Athenians name, because I know right now, I hate to say it, but they probably have a ton of merch and a ton of scarves made up where they moved to Cibolo, so they couldn't really rebrand too much, or else, what are you going to do with all this stuff that you have with San Antonio on it? But I did think it was interesting how much they're really promoting Cibolo. And I wonder if at some point in the future with, all the economic partners and business leaders that they had there, if the city of Cibolo doesn't want a team kind of to call their own versus a San Antonio Athenian team that's playing in Cibolo.
They want advantage. I was going to step into as far as for the Athenians. I like to see them branch out with the youth academy teams. I think like something that the Blossoms and the Alamo City have, and an advantage is they got a ton of players that they can go through and develop, and I think that's the disadvantage that the Athenians have. And I like to see them, have their own youth academy teams. Maybe that will help them keep their stability, for the club.
When they announced the move to Cibolo Multi-Event Center, they did announce that there are plans to have a women's academy structure in place. But like I said here, we've got to see them make it, no offense to the Athenians, but we got to see what you do year 2, because, the history says, hey, you do good, the first year, but then you took a year off. So let's see you actually build on what you've came in, because marketing, you guys, to me, you're on par with what San Antonio FC does as far as being able to get out there, I think they're on, what was it, the radio more than SAFC is, and that's no slight to Kyle and Aaron, who both are on the Ticket 760 and ESPN 1250 this past week. But with was it the Blue Collar Sports Dad? What's the Hutch? From the morning show where they got Mike Taylor on it. It's the Athenians are have been able to infiltrate the local sports media, to me, even better than what SAFC has been. If you really look at it, from that level where, you've got was it Ticket 760? I think is where Blue Collar Sports Dad is. Where they're able to get into there. They've been on Great Day SA. So as far as from a marketing aspect, and media, you hope that they can still continue it, and it helps builds the women's games, because. I know Las Rojas has had a couple articles out on it, but that is something to where, and I think you and I, when we were out at the practice facility over on our side of town, the Athenians do have goals to be able to grow and make this even more successful organization than where they are right now. So.
But you're right, Rafa. I think the academy is a key piece of that component, and that's kind of why they're trying to address that. But to Harry's point, and it's kind of similar to the Samba academies. I mean, it's got to be tough to start up a brand new, where they're trying to now bring in some the older players to play in the academy teams, and there's a lot of competition. I'm sure you're aware of that when it comes to trying to get players to fill your spots and be competitive, and at the same time get guys that you think are going to fit your system. So. we'll have to see what happens. But like you say, Harry, I think it is one of those wait and see kind of things where it's like, how long can you keep that going? Well, I think that basically covers the lower league news. Like we said, kind of wanted to focus a little bit more on the women's side of things. We'll get some more standings and stuff like that going for graphics. As you mentioned, UPSL right now still pretty early, and the WPSL super early. But let's get into some San Antonio FC talk. I know you guys were both there at the match versus the Austin Bold on Wednesday, which was kind of the first.
I forgot that match. Did that match really happen?
we don't need to dive into it too much because I'm sure some of the same topics we want to talk about that one are going to come up against Sacramento, unfortunately. But Rafa, we haven't really given you too much chance to speak tonight just because of all the lower league talk. Tell us, what your thoughts were kind of just from that Austin match.
I had kind of a little high hopes to say hopefully maybe being embarrassed the first time. Say, hey, let's steal one from these guys, and just the lineup itself. Like, well, what are we doing? We had the first team versus the JV team, and we just got blitzkrieg. There was like really no effort, mainly except for a couple players, really hustled, but you can tell that it was just they were just going through the motions, making dumb mistakes. We even saw some selfish play that we were just right there next to, and, screaming at each other for the ball. Obvious plays that should do, but it's more like it's an individual thing. We had a couple people acting like Neymars and the Messis and all that, and Austin just took advantage of it. And it was kind of embarrassing. It's just. There was for a team that's a first-year team to have more chemistry than a team that's been established already for 3 or 4 years. So, I just sort of took that from that game.
It was so bad that I wouldn't, I met the Three Birds Boldcast and we met on pre-match. And then I went over, I think about the 85th minute somewhere and stood and chit-chat with them all the way through the end. They were all like, man, what happened? Just, they've never, they got free pretzels or free something, that they never had. They'd never scored 4 goals or before, so they were all, and the score wasn't even as close as the game.
Right.
Because there was a shot that hit the goalpost, bounced up and down, and I still don't know how it didn't go in. They missed 2 PKs. Now they had to follow up on one of them, to clutch it in. The game wasn't it wasn't a competitive game. And when I tweeted out early, I think mid-afternoon, I tweeted out, I said, which lineup do you think is going to come out? Is it going to be one, hey, we're going to try to be able to advance because to be able to face an MLS team, have that opportunity? Or are they going to, rest and go for the win against Sac Republic? And it unfortunately ended up being the latter. And, when I saw the Austin lineup and it was their first team lineup, you knew we were in trouble. And, it was, for the few supporters that did go up there, it was, you could just tell early it was not, you guys watched it on TV. It wasn't a fun environment.
So
supporting San Antonio, not saying the Bold team didn't the Bolds team didn't support it or anything like that, because what they did for their team was awesome, but it was rough.
If you had to pick, would you go back up there to watch a repeat of the game we lost 1-0 when it was freezing cold? Or would you go watch the game that we lost 4-0 when we got our ass kicked?
4-2.
4-2, excuse me. I'm sorry, 4-2.
Well, I enjoyed the first game. It was cold as hell, but the action on the field, it was a competitive game.
Yeah.
This was not a competitive game. It wasn't. It just, I know it was, first team versus reserves for the most part, but
Well, that's our own fault, though. You can't.
Different class.
That's not even an excuse. I mean, why do you think you're going to go up and play a rival?
Excuse,
no, I know, but that right there goes back to the coaching. You're bringing a B team up here to play your number one rival that already kicked your ass 1-0 in the first game, and now you're going to let them embarrass you 4-2. You think they're going to throw some B team out there and give you a chance to defeat them at home after they've already beat you once this year? Hell no.
Well, what makes it worse is we just got our ass handed to us by RGV.
Of course. And then
Austin. So we placed our two closest rivals. We ended up losing what 7-3.
Yep.
And the games weren't even that close. I know you 7-3, but it should have been 10-3. It's when you got RGV fans going, man, it sucks being a fan of SAFC right now. When you got fans reaching out, followers reaching out, hey, what's going on? That tells you what it is. Here's an announcement. I was going to save it for later on. I get to go onto the USL show tomorrow. Guess who's invited? Colorado, Charlotte, and San Antonio. They're
not the group you want to be in.
What's going on? San Antonio is in the bottom 3.
Oh, man. All right. We got that out. Okay, let's simmer down now. So obviously, like you said, San Antonio FC maybe trying to play for the season instead of an Open Cup run this year. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Coach Powell didn't want to face an MLS team this year because he knew it would be too much of an embarrassment. But that's done. Open Cup run's over. Didn't even make it as far as what we did the previous years. And then we get to Sacramento.
I would have lost to Laredo. I think Laredo would have gave him a better game.
I think Laredo last year would have probably gave them a better game. Laredo this year, the team that they had out there, they lost to the Denton Diablos also in NPSL action. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see. I know they just had a big win over Tyler, like 8-0. But yeah. Laredo I get where you're coming from. It was pretty ugly. I wish Laredo would have at least had the opportunity to go play them because San Antonio FC didn't look like they even wanted to be there, whereas those kids from Laredo
didn't get off the bus.
Yeah, those kids from Laredo probably would have wanted to play. So
that's something that we're starting to see week from week is there's like no pride in this team. You got to go in with some pride when you're going against your rivals. I mean, you're here in Texas, like high school football, you're going against your rival. You're going out there to kick their butts. And the last two rival games, it's just showing the fact that we just don't care. We don't care. The players don't care, or the coaching staff don't care. Something has to change on that, and that led into what happened in Sacramento. I think that butt kicking we got Wednesday night affected what happened on Saturday night, or the play.
Do you think, though, that some of that too, Rafa? I mean, when you look at this roster, you talk about that, having that respect for the crests and everything. And I know Lance kind of talked about that a little bit last season after he had that goal and kissed his crest. But when you look at this roster, I mean, outside of Matt Cardone and then the youth players, obviously, that, we've promoted, a lot of these guys don't really have any kind of ties or relation to San Antonio or Texas, for that matter. I mean, there seems to be a lot of dysfunction just amongst the players, like you guys talked about that you witnessed on Wednesday night, the bickering at one another. Those are things that just aren't good for a team environment. And when guys start trying to just be, messies and take everybody one-on-one, it's not going to work out well for the attack.
But I think it goes deeper than that because, from what I've been hearing, and of course it's unconfirmed, is this team is a bunch of individuals again. They don't really hang out. They don't, they'll show up in practice. They'll do the team functions, but they're not there for each other. And at this level, I think that's important. And I'm not saying that you got to have everybody, all 22 just hanging out all together, but you got to have your core of your guys. You got to have your leadership, involve the entire team, or at least the starting lineup or the majority of them. And I think we're starting to see, or we're starting to hear the whispers out that that's just not the case. And I know Chris Hockman put out an article, this afternoon, kind of hitting that with number 5, Amir Didic living, that there's something amiss in the San Antonio locker room, and I DM'd, had one of the guys, I think it was from Phoenix or that reached out to me, is like, what the hell is going on? Because nobody expects this. When you look at the roster, it's you don't expect San Antonio to be closer to last place. If you really look at the standings, we're 3 points out from last place. We're down in Tacoma territory. Then we are closer to the 10th spot for the playoffs. We're closer to last place. I don't think people really understand that, how bad it really is. And I think we saw our sign today, unfortunately, because we said, hey, if they go 0-3, between RGV, Austin, and Sac Republic, would that push a result in we're 9:30 on Monday? And as of yet, nothing's been released. They're saying, hey, we're focusing on Reno, and there's a separate discussion that I'm going to address at the end. But it's like we're going to ride out this season. Now, I'm going to still be there because I support my team through thick and thin. But I hate to tell you this, it's going to be a long year, and I think SAFC is just going to ride it out, unfortunately, because I don't see them making a change. If they're not making a change after this week's results, why would they?
Yeah, and we got into a discussion on Twitter about that usually if you're going to see those types of things happen, it's going to be after a rival match or something like that, where it's really going to be kind of that emotion that's maybe a part of it. But like you said, as long as they've lasted now with just not caring about it, I don't know if they're going to make a change, because like you say, how much worse can it get? I mean, who else can you lose to? How much worse can you get embarrassed? We didn't just lose to RGV in Austin. We got embarrassed by RGV in Austin.
You can't, it used to be you could shit talk. You can't shit talk them right now. There's nothing anybody you can say.
To
hey,
anyone.
You can make fun of the attendance, but they're going to be like, hey, scoreboard, 4-2, 3-1, and then what the hell are you going to say? You can't say anything.
Well, and then you just sound like FC Cincinnati, and I don't know if we can even brag about our attendance this year, because that's been pretty pathetic as well, and I don't think those numbers are going to increase anytime soon.
Well, that's the other issue, yeah.
Yeah, but I was kind of curious, because I did make a comment a little bit on Twitter earlier this week regarding a player that I felt like had kind of done a pretty good job as far as his effectiveness this year for San Antonio FC, and that's Bradford Jamison. And maybe it's just a little bit more of the eye test, and maybe just a little bit more of his youth. But when I look at this roster and just kind of maybe the guys that I feel like still have some potential for San Antonio FC, he was one of them that just kind of stood out to me a few matches. And I guess really and truly it's mainly just kind of his effectiveness. I was just looking at his stats here, and he only has 10 shots basically all season. 10 shots all season long. But if you look at those, 4 on target and 3 goals. So he's efficient in the chances that he takes, and he gets, a lot of them on frame. And I know in the Sacramento match in that first half, they only had, 2 attempts on target. And, one of those was his, obviously deflected back to the keeper and everything, not really a true shot on target. But Rafa, I know he was one of them that you're just not sold on yet. What is it about Jamison's game kind of that you're hesitant to jump on board?
Well, watching him Wednesday night, he was just not making any good runs. He wasn't making any diagonal runs to create space. I mean, if you're a forward, you need to create your own plays to create chances. And he just kind of like waits, kind of wait till the play develops. He really has no creativity, which is weird coming in from LA Galaxy. You're coming from an MLS team that has, a lot better training than what we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I'm sure you learned a thing or two from Zlatan.
You'd hope so.
You would think he would be the best player on the team coming from that environment. But it just shows that maybe that's the reason why the Galaxy put him on loan is, hey, you need to get your butt in gear and show us something, or we're just going to release you. And I've not seen anything on him. Like I said, there was a couple plays that he could have created space, and he just didn't. Just doesn't want that, or not aggressive, chasing after balls, pressing, causing pressure. Same thing happened on Saturday night too. He made that change when Chettle came in.
Right, for
Chettle
him.
created spaces. They're a lot two different forwards, and he needs to kind of realize and especially watch his tape and say, you know what, I need to move around, create space, give my team a chance. I know they're playing too much of that long ball, but those through balls, if they're sitting down the corner, he's got an opportunity to take off and go and makes either create chances to score or give off assists or so forth. So that's what I'm seeing on his game is he's not putting the effort to, or he's not having the creativity
off
to
the
create
ball.
chances off the ball.
And I think that's kind of where San Antonio FC is maybe struggling right now with, where we've sat kind of the last few games there in 114 or 112. It's a little bit more difficult to kind of see what's going on off the ball from that viewpoint. But I feel like, it's kind of the same thing with Pirano where fans, or not fans, but I know I've criticized his game in terms of, trying to take on too many guys and ends up losing the ball and not creating chances. But I think what we do is we tend to focus on what's going on the ball and not focused on what's going on, off of it. And if guys aren't moving and guys aren't getting open, and I'm sure you coach, this goes back to the basics. If you're not in a passing lane, if you're not at that angle where he can see you and play to feet, you're not available to help him out. And I think that's where San Antonio FC in general is just struggling with making some of those off the ball runs.
See, I'm sorry, perhaps Pirano hasn't made strides as far as going more because he got a really good mentor, which is Rafa Castillo. I mean, you learn from him. When watching him Wednesday night, he really did move the ball a lot. He was involved in a lot of the plays, and I think Pirano needs to kind of watch him and then get hopefully get some under his wing and show, hey, kid, this is what you need to do. This is how you should do it. You have the speed, you have the charisma for it, but here I'm going to show you how to manage the field. And I think that's what's missing for him. And I wish, like I said, Rafa would take him under his wing and and show him the ropes for that.
But I think the other issue, and this is what we saw in Rafa, or pardon me, in Austin with, standing right next to Rafa, you've got players that'll make the run, but the player will ignore it. And he'll try to cut back in instead of doing the easy pass through there. And I think that's part of the frustration and maybe a little bit on Jameson's part is, why am I going to make the run when, the ball gets stopped?
And that can be a frustrating part. Harry, I think he just froze up a little bit, but
take it to trying to make.
Exactly. If you're not getting the pass when you're making the runs, that can be a frustrating, why am I going to continue to do that?
See, and that as a player, you got to sacrifice that to create space. That's something I tell my players. It's like, even if you don't get the ball, you're creating space to hopefully maybe someone else gets open and gets the ball in another way. And I think that comes down to the selfishness of the players. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the bickering. There's one play that Lang had a Restrepo open for an overlap, and Lang tried to dribble through four guys. The obvious easy pass was to Restrepo to send the cross. And that's what I'm seeing is there's too much individual play. I don't want to sacrifice for this team. Why should I? Like you mentioned, why should I run if I'm not going to get the ball? That attitude has to change.
Well, especially as a professional, I get tired of making runs and not getting passed in the Sunday morning league because my ass is out of shape. And if I make that run, I know I only got about 3 of them in me per match. So, it's like there goes 33% of my energy for the day. But you're right. A lot of times it's more creating spaces for other guys and opening up the field and creating those passing lanes. Because if nobody's moving and everything's just getting congested, then that's not going to be there. And that is what we saw in the match versus Sacramento. And then another thing, that I thought was pretty interesting, moving on now kind of more towards the Sacramento match, just to give Chris more props, he came up with the offside stat. And Sacramento had been caught, I think it was like 9 times offside in their previous game. And I feel like San Antonio FC, that's kind of what our back four tries to do a lot of the times with how flat they play. And you saw in that first goal or the first one that got called back where it was luckily an offside call because the player flicked it. Otherwise, I think he would have been on. But we get burned too much trying to play that flat back four with that offside trap versus going to more of a diamond and just kind of stretching it out a little bit so you can kind of get back and cover those deep balls. What do you think, Rafa, about the offside trap? I kind of made the comment, live by the sword, die by the sword. I just don't know if it's working out for San Antonio FC.
I don't think they have the discipline for that. And you can tell. I mean, if you're going to run an offside trap, you have to be in sync. All four defenders have to be in sync. And I don't see anybody taking control, especially your center mids, your center defenders. They have to take control, pushing everybody up, getting back down, and so forth. I think that's something that we lost, not having Sip anymore. I think he gave an advantage for us, having that, that being the captain of the defense, controlling all that. We don't have that anymore. There's like no communication. Just a lot of finger pointing. I mean, he could go to a 3-5-2, play a 3-back. It's going to create a lot more spaces. I mean, your outside backs are going to have to come back outside, for your wings, have to run back to defend. But it's all comes down to discipline, playing that offside trap, and the players just don't have it. They just, it's too much into, like I said, it comes down to individual play, not listening. No one wants to take control, and that has to change.
How big of an injury has it been with Mo Hernandez out? I think that has been. It's been a huge, and it's part of the reason why I don't understand why San Antonio FC has not brought in a real left back or right back or one that can play both on here, because they're trying to put Lance Lang in there, which is putting him in an impossible situation because he doesn't play it. And like I said here, you may be able to get away with that against Laredo, but going against UPSL teams, I think Rafa, you said at the game, they just kept going down on that side because they knew it was a weakness. And you don't think Sacramento did the same thing? If hope Mo's back, this week, don't get me wrong, but if he's not out, why aren't we trying to bring in somebody, a little bit more quality, or, if they don't have the confidence? What I think Fenwick has played it. 15 Akman, I think it's
Akon had a good game.
Akon had it. Why isn't he playing out there instead of putting Lang in there? So to me, that's, to me, it all comes back to, either Tim Holt on how he constructed the team, / Coach Powell, because I think Coach Powell has a heavy decision in it. And then, to me, has the players started to shut out Coach Powell? And, because looking at the effort, this isn't the effort from the previous three teams that we've seen. This is an effort that I'm used to seeing in, I think it was the odd years of the Scorpions, where, they'd have a really good year and then they'd have a shitty year the next year, because they would bring in lower level players, and I think the players are there. I just don't think, the common denominator is Coach Powell.
Well, and I think that's a common denominator, but, I think it goes back to Rafa's point about communication. Here we are trying to run more of an offside trap, and we scored an own goal because we can't even communicate between the keeper and one of our defenders whether or not he's coming out to scoop the ball up or whether or not, we're going to clear it out. And he tried to pass it back to Cardoni, and Cardoni was running out there to go scoop it up, and we scored an own goal. That's how bad our communication is on the pitch. So, if they're not talking to each other and communicating with each other.
Let me ask you a question on that. Who do you put that on? I put that more on Cardoni, and that's the weakest part of his game. Do you put that more on him, or because I think Yarrow has been one of our better defenders, or do you put this?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to put that on Cardoni. You could see the frustration, I feel like, from Yarrow after that happened, and he was sitting there just kind of griping at him like, dude, why don't you talk to me and say something if you're coming out like that, So you could tell he was kind of taken aback and surprised by the fact that he didn't hear anything from his keeper. Now, had Cardoni sat there and yelled, mine, 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 and he still played the ball back, then it's going to be on Yarrow, not being able to kind of hear the audio or be there to see exactly what happened. But just based upon the expression that I felt like Yarrow had after that happened, that it might have been on Cardoni.
Yeah, it looked like on that play that he assumed that he was going to call him off, and I think he did call him off, but it was already too late. And that's something Cardone needs to improve on. That's something Restrepo didn't have problems with as far as communication in the back. As far as Cardone physically, he had made some great. He saved our butt. This game could have been 5-6-0 without all those saves he made. It should have been a blowout. But that communication cost us that game. If he gets that ball, you're talking a 1-1 tie, possibly 1-1 tie, and we get a point. So those are the little things that needs to be fixed. What is Coach Powell doing to fix that? We have no clue. As a coach, you have to recognize that. But also, as far as like the GMs and your upper your owners and all that, when is enough? You have to realize, what, we got to make a change. I'll give you a perfect example. The Real Madrid game versus Barcelona with Lopetegui, they get blown out. They get rid of him. They bring somebody else in. They didn't wait to, well, it's just one game. We're just gonna, you got your butt kicked by a rival. Got to make a change. And that's what we're not seeing right now. We already got our butts kicked by 2 rivals. I think it's time for a change. Is El Paso going to be the trifecta that we end up, finally realizing, what, we do need to make a change now. But by that time, it'll be too late.
And that's the thing. You're 13 games into the season. You're talking about what's Coach Powell doing to improve communication on the squad. That's something that you should have in place before the first whistle blows. That's what you're doing in preseason when you're having all those games against Trinity and University of Incarnate Word and St. Mary's School for the Blind. If you can't get your communication down in preseason, where you're, something as simple as you've got it when you're coming out of the box, how do you expect them to do it now that they're 13 games into the season? What's going to change? What's going to click now?
But I also think, going back to it, and I said it was a mistake at the time, they didn't take any away trips this year to build up that team. And I'm sorry, hey, it's great to train here in San Antonio and stuff like that. It was awesome to have St. Louis come down and I'm assuming train between the two squads. But you got to be able to go out and have a test on the road, be able to get used to life on the road. And I'm sorry, Dallas, up and down is not that. You need that week away, to be able to get people together, to be able to find, hey, how are we actually going to function as a team? That way you can get away from the home distractions. But they didn't do that this year for the first time. The previous years they had went out to Phoenix and Florida. This year they did not. So to me, it kind of goes back to, hey, are they doing a little cost cutting? And that's the reason why there needs to have this perception that SS&E doesn't fire coaches. If you look prior to Coach Pat, not that they don't have that history. I know recent history is blocked because they've had a GOAT for a coach in Coach Popovich. Pardon me, I think I said Coach Powell earlier. Coach Popovich. But that's something that SS&E, if you look historically, pre-Pop, they were not shy on moving coaches.
No, that's a great point. Not having any kind of like real road trip this season or any test or any camaraderie. Yeah, something's going on a little bit with the connection, but we can still hear you. Just a little intermittent. But I saw where Tierpak, had a hat trick there for Austin Bold this past weekend. Saw where Cochran now is expecting the birth of a child, and you see guys like Pekka going on there and commenting congratulations, and with Sip, and they're having twins, and you see kind of all the old SC players chiming in. Now, granted, those are big life-changing events, not just a casual post, but you feel like you kind of see some of that connection still between existing San Antonio FC players and some of those pre-existing players that are no longer there with the club. And I just feel like, again, that same common denominator is going to be Coach Powell. What do you think, Rafa, in terms of just kind of that team camaraderie and what we can do to try and fix that?
I think you just have to cut the head off the snake. It's time. Is Marcina the answer? You know, if they're gonna try to relive, like I said, with the Scorpions, you know, who knows? I honestly think there was I did read that article from Chris, you know, about that player. It's like the difference of style of coaching from Swope Park and from here. You know, could that be a difference? You know, maybe we do need a coach that's more player friendly, or but it still expects them to go out there 100%, not make any excuses. You know, that's what I think we honestly need as a coach. Because if you can tell, I mean, even the game when we got scored on, he just stood there with his hand like this, and you know, they score on me, I'm gonna pump up my players like, hey, let's go, let's get it going, let's get back from this, you know. But I just don't see that. He's just like, okay, we just got scored on, well, whatever, you know. You know, they need to bring someone very charismatic. I think that will bring life back to the team. Who's out there? You know, we don't know. You know, I mean, maybe they can bring Maradona in. He's coaching second division in you know. You know, you got to make a. They have to make a splash.
Yeah.
Whoever they get that as the next coach, you got to make a splash. You got to bring the excitement not only for the players in that locker room, but also for the fans, because you're already having fans walking out on this team.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not good. And you know, I've already heard little talks here and there about not showing up to the games anymore. You know, I'm like I said, win or lose, I'm going to support my team. But for some, they're not, you know, die hard. You know, winning's nice and is going to attract more people, but still, you have to make a change. You got to show an effort. So you know what, we're willing to make a change to make things a lot better.
I agree. I mean, you know, we got an upcoming match here for a home game against Reno on Saturday, and then not going to have another one there for a little while until the you know, the Wednesday night match. I believe is the next home one against El Paso Locomotive, and then so as far as like a Saturday match goes, we're going to have one basically for this month, you know, and then there's not going to be anything there for a little while. So it's going to be important for them, I think, to have a good showing here in this match against Reno. Harry, I know we're kind of coming up now a little over an hour. You know, were there any other topics of discussion before we kind of get into final thoughts as far as this episode goes?
Yeah, I apologize about my connection. It doesn't seem like it's working how it should be, but I guess I shouldn't have trashed to Todd at the start of this.
Karma's a bitch.
But Samba sent me a message saying the Samba ladies have a friendly on Wednesday at Soccer Zone Live Oak versus the PASL San Antonio women's team. Games at 5:30 and tickets are $5 at the door. So if you don't have anything to do at 5:30 or over in the area, go out and support the Lady Samba teams there for that here as a friendly here. But to me, the other big thing that came out this afternoon is San Antonio FC. I guess the only way to say it unofficially is having a Pride Night.
Yeah, what's up with that? I saw your comments on that. I thought you would have been ecstatic about that and everything. And then because I kind of saw Mission City Firm's post. I don't think I saw San Antonio FC's actual post. Explain to us, though, what you mean about that.
Well, they didn't. That's the problem.
Okay.
There's two ladies that are running the night. And let me just pull up the quote here.
Yeah, because I kind of missed the announcement from San Antonio FC. Obviously, you know, I think all the San Antonio FC fans are more than happy to celebrate a Pride Night here in San Antonio. Like I say, I saw Mission City Firm already kind of posting about it. What did the post say?
Hold on.
Oh, my apologies. I thought you were waiting on me, man.
Yeah, no.
I said, shut up, Scott. I got it right here in front of me, and I'll tell you what they said.
So basically what it was here, I thought I had tweeted it out here.
And it could have just been, you know, that time where I got home from work and in between making dinner and everything. And I was really excited about Chris's article today, too, and for that moving forward.
Where is the tweet here? Of course, I can't find it right now.
Yeah, because I was about to say I'm not seeing anything actually on San Antonio FC's page about it. I just saw the graphic.
Well, it's not on San Antonio. It's on. It's a lady Bree here. Hold on. Did you want to do your, or did you want to do Rafa's?
Yeah, Rafa. Yeah,
back to it.
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. Rafa, what about you, man? Any final thoughts? I know you kind of had some time now to rest and relax. What's on the mind?
Looking forward to see if we can bounce back. I know it's going to be tough for Reno. I mean, to beat them it'll be an upset. So I'm looking forward for that. Hopefully we can pull through, and then we got Gold Cup coming up, Women's World Cup. African Nations Cup, so lots of soccer this June for America. So we're really exciting. Very boring UEFA final, except for the streaker.
I saw your memes, man. Those were hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that game was going to be a lot more exciting because I mean you got two rival teams in the EPL that hate each other and it was a war. It's like this is a lot less entertaining than a high school soccer game is more entertaining than this.
Yeah,
so
one handball determined the match, huh?
But yeah, I'm looking for I am looking for the Gold Cup. I know Mexico's playing Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm.
We got a friendly up in Atlanta, so I think it's against Venezuela or Ecuador, one of those two. And I think they're playing in Dallas on Sunday. So they got two warm-ups right before the start of the Gold Cup. I don't know who the U.S. is playing. I haven't checked their schedule yet.
We really played Jamaica on Wednesday because I was surprised Omar Gordon wasn't in the 18 or the roster for it. And I guess they kind of mentioned that this is just a friendly, but there are still plans for him because Omar being a former SAFC player, I do try to follow him and. Hope him and I guess the Phoenix guys have quite a few of them that are going to be on the team. But I did find the tweet here. So Las Rojas, asked, hey, why hasn't, SAFC announced it as of yet? Bree at the Bree_G responded with this. It says, this is a special group night that I wanted to put out together this season. I love the idea of being able to bring in the LGBTQ community and the soccer community together. I'm very happy to have gotten the support within the organization to make this night happen. It has not been promoted by the club because it is not an official theme night, rather than an event that I made available to the public. I look forward to making this a fun night for anyone who would like to join us and celebrate football for everyone. So it's one of those official things here where SAFC signed off on it because they had to, but they're not going to be promoting it. So I'm kind of interested in how that'll turn out. However, they are offering a ticket and a scarf combo, which I'm going to do because I want the scarf here, for it here. I can't be one saying, hey, why don't you have it? And then not support it here. I was kind of having a discussion with Las Rojas on this here. And we have a feeling this is probably kind of a tester to see how well it is perceived and supported here in San Antonio. So if you are going to, I think it's $22, to get the scarf, or starting tickets at $14. And Bree, Bree at the Bree_G, she has a link there where you can go on, and I'll retweet the link back out for that here. But there is a group where you can go in and sign up, because if you just buy the ticket, it doesn't have the scarf combo. So you do have to go through this special link to be able to do it. So to me, it's one of those, hey, it's a good thing that they're doing it, but they're, it's like they're dipping their toes in it a little bit, per se, and testing the water. So,
well, to their credit, they are doing it. Looks like a pregame mixer starting at 5:30, a postgame photo op, and then donating a portion of the ticket proceeds to the Pride Center here in San Antonio. So
why wouldn't you, if you're going to be doing that, why wouldn't you? So, and I'm not saying they're not supporting it, but based on based on here where they say that it's not an official theme night.
But I don't understand why it's not an official theme night.
Why can't they add it as an official theme night?
Because the only thing that's going on, what doesn't make it an official? What doesn't make it an official theme night though? If it's a scarf with a ticket and post-game photo on field and 5:30 pregame mixer and it's dollar drink night, that to me is a theme night, right? Like the scarf is Pride Scarf, the match is Pride Night Out with SAFC. They may not just have tweeted it out yet because it's the El Paso Locomotive match and it's not till Wednesday, June 26th. And right now I think they're still kind of trying to promote their military appreciation stuff that they just put out for this match with the military appreciation scarf. But I'm looking here at the flyer that Mission City Firm tweeted out. And I mean, it looks exactly like a San Antonio FC flyer with the graphics and everything else.
And to me, that's kind of the odd thing of, but you don't, and I'd have to check to see if it is on the actual official website. If it is on the app.
And that's why, I mean, we'll have to,
It's not, I didn't see it on the app. Did you?
No, it's not on the app.
It's a theme night. Okay.
Yeah, it is a theme night at all.
Gotcha. So it definitely was something last minute. It wasn't like a fourth. It seems like it was just kind of a secondary thought that they tried to throw together or whatever real quick. But yeah, hopefully it is a good test and they see a good result and it continues to grow and they do more with it. Because I know,
looking at their site, there's not, and I understand it just came out this afternoon. Yeah, but there's not the promotion like you've seen with the other ones.
An actual fiesta theme night or so. I got you. I was just wondering what you meant by like that it wasn't a theme night because like I said, I just saw that flyer and I didn't even realize San Antonio FC hadn't tweeted that out.
But when you look at it, you would think it's official. Yeah, I think that's what's kind of confusing people is why SAFC the official Twitter is not.
It's like is not behind it. It's not hot. It's not cold. It's just like lukewarm.
And that's why I say it's almost like they're dipping their toes. It's kind of a test case to see what kind of response there is to it.
And it's interesting they pick a Wednesday night match too. Granted it's a big match versus El Paso, but it's not like it's a Saturday game. It's just kind of So we'll have to pay attention. Hopefully they do kind of promote that a little bit more and everything here in the coming weeks. I know I thought that scarf that they came out with for the military appreciation thing was pretty sweet. I kind of like that more than some of the ones they've done in the past, so I know I'll probably get that one. I kind of try and limit myself with the number of scarves I buy this season when they start doing all these different theme nights because I really don't need the ticket, so it becomes...
You don't want to have the whole thing. Like, I readjusted my scarves and basically the whole row behind me outside of the Detroit City Kitty scarf and the American Outlaws, San Antonio or Texas one, and the 3 supporter scarves. The rest are all SAFC scarves.
Yeah, they do a lot.
I have no problem.
Yeah, I try and I'll spend like $20 on a scarf each year, but yeah, you got to kind of watch it a little bit. So, well, no, as far as final thoughts go for me, I mean, to the people that are frustrated, don't let somebody tell you that you can't be upset with the team and still be forever loyal. I think you can still be a loyal fan while still critiquing what you're seeing within the organization. And, like we've all kind of said, we're going to be the ones that stick it out. I think the ones that are most critical, a lot of them are the ones that are going to stick it out and continue to go. And you're going to lose some people because of fair weather fans. I mean, that's the nature of the business. When you're not winning and when you're not performing well, some people just aren't going to show up. So... I feel like that everybody has a right to feel how they want to about the club and the organization, and there's nothing worse than somebody telling you that you must not be a real supporter because you're critiquing the club and not just playing in fields of dandelions and sunflowers.
But I think that makes you the real supporter, because if and that's
be
hopefully
careful.
What I'm instilling in AJ. Is hey, it's not always going to be roses. You're not going to be the Patriots and win a championship or win your division every year. You're going to have some lean years. It's how you still support the team. It's how you come back and I consider myself probably one of the people that heavily is at least openly criticizes the team on social media, but yet I'm right there that also praises them on stuff like this today. For that here and as long as you're showing up, you're still investing into the club. To me, I'd rather vent on social media than I'm not saying I wouldn't boo at a stadium, but to me, I feel like hey, this is my outlet at the stadium. Even if things aren't going well, I'm still going to be yelling support and shouting to them as opposed to walking out of the stadium and going that route, because this is a safety event for you to be able to say, hey, and like I said here, you don't necessarily need to tag SAFC. You don't need to tag, players, because I do think that crosses the line here, unless you know that player here, especially if you don't know the player, and that's, to me, my final thought is going to be for Yaro. It sucks that, how that own goal happened, but I'm 100% him behind all year, because he's been one of our best players, and it was a mistake, and you could tell he was not happy with it, to put it lightly. But it happens. That's why you play the game. You're gonna have seasons like this, and as a fan and as a supporter group, I won't lie to you, I was disappointed that none of the, not really, there was no representation in Austin by 118, by the Crocketeers, or 210 Alliance. I'm sorry, it's 90 miles away. I know it's a work night, but as a supporters group, you should at least have a small presence there. You don't have to be like a Saturday night, don't get me wrong, but there should have been, fans there. Because to be honest with you, that's what the Bolt supporters called us out the most on is, hey, where are you guys today compared to the first game?
Well, we'll have to see what happens here against Reno this weekend, and obviously a huge match with El Paso coming up. They're going to be having some tickets for El Paso. They've already announced the sections and everything like that for their supporters. So we'll have to see. Like I say, thank God that match is a Wednesday. Otherwise, I'm a little concerned there might be more Locomotive fans there in attendance than San Antonio FC ones, whether they live here locally.
I don't go that far, buddy.
Might be a little bit of a stretch. All right. That's my hot take for tonight. This is the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. We out.
We're out.